This month, Biden commenced his first trip abroad to reassure the world that America is back and stands in solidarity with other democracies worldwide. In doing so, he leaves behind a fractured American democracy, reeling from the trauma of the Trump years. Biden's agenda includes a visit to the G7 summit, a meeting with NATO in Brussels, and a concluding summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Geneva. We're going to make it clear that the United States is back, and democracies of the world are standing together to tackle the toughest challenges. Biden told US troops at an air base in eastern England on Wednesday. On domestic policy, it is clear that Biden has learned a crucial lesson from the Obama era. His administration has been quick to tackle the pandemic, end construction of the Keystone Pipeline, and halt funding for the border wall, along with ending some other controversial Trump-era policies. These swift moves have come with little Republican support, let alone correspondence. This differs from the Obama administration, which often slowed down their policy proposals from design to implementation with the hope of Republican support. Oftentimes, this support never truly came. As a result, in an effort to build consensus, many of Obama's signature domestic policies, such as Obamacare, had to be significantly watered down in the interest of bipartisan support. Hence, its policy effectiveness was hindered. However, on foreign policy, Biden has his work cut out. Republican appeasement seems to be his go-to plan so far. On Iran, Joe Biden made clear that the withdrawal from the nuclear deal was a disastrous mistake, undermining America's global reputation and creating a more hostile Middle East. The deal severely restricted Iran's nuclear program. With these restrictions, Tehran was on the verge of developing nuclear weapons of their own. You would think that once in office, Biden would announce an immediate return to negotiations around the creation of a similar deal. So far, unfortunately not. Both Biden's Secretary of State and Director of National Intelligence have ushered away talks of a new deal. They first require Iran to stop nuclear development, but that's primarily a strategy to avoid tackling the problem. US and Iranian diplomats could easily employ methods for both nations to rejoin simultaneously. Many of Biden's officials helped negotiate the Iran Accords in the first place and argued persistently that it was the best deal America could get with Iran. So what's caused them to change their minds? On China, Biden has portrayed America's resolve to prove its strength against growing Chinese influence. Both Biden's call with Xi Jinping and Blinken's call with his counterpart sound less like diplomatic conversations than mere rhetoric voiced to rally Americans against Beijing. Words like coercive and unfair threaten to hold Beijing responsible for its plan to threaten security in the Indo-Pacific. However, in 2020, the Biden campaign chronicled Trump's trade war with China as an unmitigated disaster that burdened Americans financially and employment-wise. When asked in an interview whether he would keep Trump's tariffs, Biden answered no and offered a comprehensive argument against the policy. But it's not being reversed. It's merely under review. On Cuba, Biden attacked Trump's policies and vowed to return to the Obama-era effort to lift the embargo and engage diplomatically with Cuba. The argument was that such policies would be more useful in changing the island nation than the prior strategy of isolating Cuba, burdening it with sanctions. But, yet again, it hasn't been reversed. It's merely under review. You would expect that Biden and his advisors would have utilized the past 4 years carefully examining Trump's policies, since they publicly claimed that they were terrible. Given this situation, I think Biden's foreign policy officials are trying to pander to domestic affairs, working to avoid Republican criticism of being too soft on America's foes. This doesn't work. Republicans have already discerned a weakness and are mounting a campaign to keep the Iran deal from ever being reforged. This will then be rejoiced as a marvelous Republican victory in the face of Trump's deep state. On China, former top Trump official Cliff Sims responded to Biden's Xi call by implying that it was all lies and that the real story was that Biden was selling out America with Chinese Communist Party deals. Meanwhile, that same day, Mike Pompeo criticized the patriotism of Democrats and argued that they were trying to funnel taxpayer dollars to the Chinese Communist Party. It is clear that no matter the aggressiveness of Biden's foreign policies, Republicans will accuse him of appeasement. Democrats should keep in mind that when they adopt foreign policy in fear, they never win. Lyndon Johnson sent 500,000 soldiers as part of the Vietnam War, fearing that Republicans would accuse him of being soft on communism. After 9/11, Democrats voted for the Patriot Act and the Iraq War. John Kerry was a war hero, having acquired 3 Purple Hearts, and like Joe Biden, also voted to authorize the Iraqi invasion. In response, Republicans labeled him as a man who lied about his war record. If you look at Obama's success in terms of foreign policy, the Bin Laden raid, the Paris Climate Accords, the Iran nuclear deal, the opening to Cuba, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, he achieved them because he was a unique figure, willing to question groupthink in Washington, take risks, and above all, stop conducting foreign policy on Republican terms. The Biden team is very competent. They should work candidly to make the world a better place. Quoting Biden, they should build back better.